Hello, this is the headline interview with me, Chris Blackhurst, business commentator for the Evening Standard. My guest today is David Hitchcock, Executive Chairman of Cyrus Investment Management. He took an unconventional route into the city, where he worked for Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, but more recently he's become an investor and director of UK precision engineering companies. Welcome, David.
Thanks for having me.
I said their unconventional route. It was very unconventional because you Cambridge University, which I suppose the city is conventional, but then where did you go after that?
I went to Sandhurst and joined the army and spent, I think, 7 years after university in firstly the Royal Regiment of Wales and then 5 years with the Gurkhas. So all over the world.
Why the Gurkhas?
The most everybody thinks their regiment is the best, and they are for everybody. But for the Gurkhas, I thought it was just such an unusual and absolutely fascinating unit. I mean, they are world famous. The soldiers are all Nepalese. Very few non-Nepalese in the regiment. All the soldiers are from the Himalayas. They're a mixture of Buddhist and Hindu, and your working day, in my day, was entirely conducted in Nepalese.
Really? Can you speak Nepalese?
I speak Nepalese, yes.
Speak some Nepalese.
Tapai kosto noncha, Chris.
I hope that wasn't rude.
It means how are you? Visiting Nepal, I still run all the money for the Gurkha Welfare Trust. We obviously had a terrible year with the earthquake, so we're sending lots of money up there.
And this was active service. You were in Northern Ireland, weren't you?
I was in Northern Ireland with the Royal Regiment of Wales, yes, on the border.
Right.
And so I had a platoon of 28 soldiers, as many of my contemporaries did, and I spent 4.5 months on the Fermanagh border back in 86 and 87.
What did you do at university? What was your...
I read history.
And you grew up in Wales?
I'm from South Wales, yeah.
South Wales, history, Cambridge, and then the army. And then why did you leave the army? You'd had enough, or...?
I got married, but she
Your
never
wife
asked me.
didn't fancy the married courses.
Well, she did it for 14 months. She's American, Elizabeth, and we met in Hong Kong. But no, she never asked me to leave. But I think for many soldiers like myself, the best part of soldiering is being in the regiment, and I think it is. I was definitely really enjoyed it. I'm still very involved with the army, but I wanted. I think I was 29 when I left, and I think it was time to do something else.
And how did you join Goldman Sachs? That's quite a big leap.
It is a big leap. It's
probably just the same as the army.
Another jungle. And I applied and went through all the waves of interviews, as you do.
Is it true they do all those interviews there?
They do all these interviews. And
literally, for those who don't know, it's what, 20 interviews? Or?
Yeah, I think I had 18. Some people had 13.
18 interviews for one job?
Yes. I mean, many of them on the same day, obviously.
Heaven's sake.
But it was good as a soldier to do it because they trained you very well. I went on a training course, very like Liar's Poker, if you've read the book, actually.
I have, yeah.
And sort of 7-8 months in New York, where they trained us. Most people had an MBA, apart from a great friend of mine who was from the Special Boat Service, who didn't have an MBA. He and I, we went on to become a partner at Goldman, actually. But we were trained very well. And
do you think being in the army helped you for the city?
Definitely.
In what way?
Well, you know how to work hard. I think you're of a good character. The army knocks the corners off people, and you have integrity. And I've always been my own man. And I wouldn't say I was a trailblazer in the city, because there'd been a lot of people in various other banks who'd come out of the armed services. But I think for our generation, I came out during the recession of early 92, when you remember the pound was in the ERM at the wrong rate. And I was very pleased to get that job. And after my friend and I, Peter MacDonald, lots of people came into Goldman Sachs from the army. And actually, throughout my years in the city, I've always sponsored helping people come out of the armed services.
They're both very male places, of course, as well. I mean,
well, we at JP Morgan, I set up the military alumni group, so we had a lot of men and women. It tends to be, as you know, probably more males in the armed services than ladies, but we recruited pretty widely and of all ranks, actually, not just officers. So that was a really good thing to do.
What were you actually doing for Goldman?
Equity sales.
So you were manning a trading desk and shouting orders, all the stuff we see on TV.
Yeah, it wasn't Wolf of Wall Street. It was good, solid research and sales where we
making lots of money.
Well, we hope so. And then at JP Morgan, I ran equity sales when I went there after a short time, and I spent most of my time on the trading floor.
So you actually rose to quite a senior.
I was head of investor client management, so I managed all. I had a team of MDs who were all excellent, but I managed all of JP Morgan's relationships with hedge funds and asset managers.
That's a pretty big job. I mean,
it's a big job. And but what's interesting, first of all, you do all the products, everything from if there was a mergers deal involving an asset manager, for example, it didn't happen very often, but then the main businesses such as equities, fixed income, which is credit and rates, and then the servicing businesses like prime brokerage and custody. So all your clients, my clients were. I really enjoyed it. Clients were all chief executives of asset management companies, chief investment officers, chief financial officers, heads of equity, heads of fixed income, and all the hedge fund principals as well. So just because of my age, most of the hedge funds seem to be formed out of people I either worked with at Goldman or JP Morgan, not exclusively, but they tended to be that. That was the era when people left and started to set up funds.
So there you were. You'd reached a pretty senior position, and presumably you could have gone on to even greater heights and even more money at JP Morgan, and you left.
Well, I was probably the only part of the bank where grey hair, or in my case, no hair,
Thanks a lot.
was actually good. So you actually could be in a part of the bank where your clients really valued your experience, and that's really a niche I wanted to be in. I would never have gone on to the, I think, higher up the chain.
You still had a pretty senior job.
It was a very senior job, but it was, the pyramid gets very narrow as you go up, and also I've always been aware of what I can and can't do, and I really enjoyed the people business, the client business, and I was delightfully happy.
Quit. I mean,
I did. I actually retired, which is very unusual for.
So how old were you when you retired?
My 50th birthday.
So
There wasn't a defined benefit pension scheme or anything. It was in my mind. Actually, I was born on St. David's Day. Can you imagine for a Welshman? It was in my mind that that was a very good time to draw it to a close. I'd really enjoyed it, but I had this burning desire, as you know, to do something else.
So it wasn't that you were retiring to do some gardening and.
No.
What?
I have black fingers. My wife says I'm not a very good gardener.
So the whole plan was that you'd retire and then you wanted to get into industry.
Correct.
And by industry we mean real industry. We mean dirty overalls and factories and heavy machinery, not tech city or anything like that.
The kind of industry that.
This is the old-fashioned stuff.
The old-fashioned stuff, and. So it's precision engineering. We're not production engineers. It is exactly when you're 8 years old you thought a factory was all about. It is very high tech in the machines. They're all CNC machines. We can cut to 0.002 of a millimeter, depending on our craneage in which factory. We can cut up to 40 tons. We can.
So just to be clear, this is what you did was you started buying businesses that, frankly, no one else wanted. That were sort of precision engineering companies that had their day, and these are factories with cranes, with making anything really, aren't they?
Yeah,
to a very high standard.
It's bespoke, but
it's really what's left of British manufacturing.
Yes, it is. I did it for 2 years.
And we're talking about well away from the city in the southeast. This is northeast, northwest, Midlands, South Wales.
Correct. So these are the old industrial heartlands. Two things I want to do. One was give jobs, properly paid jobs, back to poor areas. I felt very strongly about it.
So was this an element of you going home or back to your roots?
Back to my roots. I still live in London, but I travel to Wales and the north a lot. But it was really, it occurred to me through the 90s and the aughties or whatever it is, that I was having a great life, working very hard, but I was really felt very privileged. And when one travelled, you could see areas of great deprivation. And what was really odd, you see, was that the manufacturing is in the DNA of the UK. And we find that we have some of the best engineers on the planet. The Brits are very innovative. And really, when I really looked into it, what I found was that they didn't have the access, Chris, to finance. That was the main thing. They find it very difficult to get long-term funding in what you and I would call a consistent way. And they would be dealing with their local clearers or whatever. And that really was starving some businesses that you could just see were bursting to get out.
David, we have to take a short break now. In a few minutes, I'll be asking David more about his business. Welcome back to the Headline Interview with me, Chris Blackhurst. My guest today is David Hitchcock, Executive Chairman of Cyrus Investment Management. Now, before the break, Cyrus Investment Management sounds very city and financial, but actually what you're doing is you're buying heavy industry. You're going around Britain buying up really old family-owned manufacturing businesses, putting them all together and hopefully making a lot of money for you and your investors. Is that a good summary, or?
We want to look after our investors, certainly, but equally importantly, we want to look after the employees. What we find is the companies become much stronger, Chris, once you consolidate them. We don't really ever fire anyone, or we actually hire people. And we're not. I say the difference between us and, say, a classic private equity company is we are not driven from day one by the exit.
Right.
I mean, we want to get big. We want to have a world-class...
So this is a business that you want to grow and grow, not one that's 3 years that, right, no. Boys, we put our money in, now we're all out.
Correct. It's my third career. I want to retire, and I want to leave a legacy.
Right. And how many companies have you bought so far?
We've bought probably half a dozen now. Six over the last few years. We'll close at Touchwood on another 3, I think, in the next few weeks.
So this is all around the country?
Yeah, we tend to buy the 3 kind of deals we do. You've touched on the most important kind, which is a family retirement sale. So when we get to know about a company that's for sale, we always ask, why do you want to do it? 9 times out of 10, it's retirement, and so we really want to know what the vendor wants, and inevitably it's because their children don't want to go into the business, or sadly there's been a fatality in the family or divorce or whatever it is. So we're not pushy at all in terms of how we acquire these companies. We'll never bid against anyone else. But the problem with theyese companies, sometimes they're world class, they wouldn't still be here, but people get ground down over the decades in terms of how they're going to grow.
Why do you think you can make British manufacturing work when other people haven't?
I think a lot of it's common sense. The first thing is to only buy things where you think you can add value, engineering value. As well as the family retirement trades, we've done 2 very successful receiver deals where we've bought a company from receivership that otherwise all the employees have been let go. You probably saw about the famous, now famous, infamous case of Taylor and Sons, which was in the High Court a few months ago. Company's House put the wrong company into bankruptcy. The managing director was away with his wife on her 25th anniversary in the Maldives, I think. And Company's House sent an email, or whatever, how we would do it, communication to, thousands of people, other companies, and saying they were under, and they went under in 3 days, and they won their High Court case. We gave evidence on behalf of Taylor's, but the point is we were then able to buy the company from the receiver and hire most of the people back.
Absolutely
and that was last year we did.
Company's House put out a notice saying the company's gone bust, and it hadn't. They got the name wrong.
They got the name wrong.
And you're able, and they happen to be your competitor.
They were next door, literally, and we were able to buy.
Are you in hock with Company's House? Is there some sort of cosy deal going on?
But you can't rely on that all the time. But for example, last year we bought a company called Bradford Cylinders, one of the best-known cylinder manufacturers in the UK. Again, one of these cracking companies. based in Bradford. They make cylinders. They've done the cylinders for the Lusitania, the Aquitania, a lot of Type 45 frigates. There's cylinders from Bradford in the Cardiff Bay Barrage. They went under, I think, just before Good Friday, because they had a defined benefit pension scheme.
Right.
So we were able to buy them off the receiver and hire, many of the employees back, and we've been building the company up very successfully ever since. So as well as family trades, we do receiver deals, and of course the third kind of deals we do are your classic deals where maybe there's a mechanical engineering company that a PLC or whatever wants to sell that's non-core anymore. So those are the three ways we do it.
This is always said about British manufacturing, is that it just can't compete with Far East, with China, with South Korea, places like that where wages are lower.
Over years of sterling being thrown across the foreign exchange markets and tin pot management and trade unions and whatnot, what's happened is there are a lot of companies, the UK Mittelstand, if you excuse the phrase, that are just quietly getting on with it.
Yeah.
And they're not sexy. You don't see them on the TV. They're just quietly doing it, and they're actually world class. And what's happened is either the selling families or whoever have just run out of oomph or whatever. I think they may be, for example, doing so well and should go to another factory. But if you're a 70-year-old vendor, the thought of going through the gnaws of building a 150,000 square foot factory, down the M4, whatever, is not what they want to do at that time of life. We will keep them on. We'll take all the pain away in terms of the finance function, but we'll let the vendors do front of house because what engineers like to do is talk about engineering to clients, and we find we've got a very common sense approach to it. We sell everybody's products to the companies acquired to all the clients in a very disciplined way, and we export to China, we export to the Ruhr, we export all over the world, and because of our very unfashionability, as it were, Chris, it's given me a real opportunity for myself and our investors and our employees to steal a march.
Do you think there is a future for British manufacturing, not just
Definitely
in your own area, but over
so,
in
for
other
example,
areas?
in autos, you and I grew up watching Red Robbo or British Leyland, and people used to talk about Friday cars, didn't they?
Yeah.
But actually, if you look at it now, I think the UK is the second biggest volume exporter, even in Europe, of premium cars behind the Germans. Just under 80% of the cars made in the UK are exported. We supply the automotive chain. We've got a cracking oil and gas industry. Aberdeen, by the way, we supply oil and gas. It's not just a North Sea port. It is actually an entrepot for lots of oil field goods and services across the EMEA. You've got Tata Steel have made tremendous investments in particularly Port Talbot.
In which case, where did it go wrong? I mean, you mentioned Red Robbo, famous union leader and strikes at British Leyland. Was it the unions? Were they too militant? Was it the employers?
Well, I think it was a combination of everything.
Explain why so many factories, not your factories, but lots of factories around Britain are idle, or they've been turned into flats or warehouses or whatever. I mean,
well, Britain on its own, I think, would be about the 11th largest manufacturing nation in the world. I think that's what the CBI tell me. And there's lots of good stuff going on. I think in the 70s, what happened was just an awful decade of bad management, militant unions, and a lack of clear sort of vision. I'm very happy all my production I keep onshore, Chris, and my view is, and you see it in Germany, the answer to everything is not always a devaluation. You've got to try and climb up the value scale in terms of goods and services, and then you can sell. We've benefited a lot from reshoring. I know some of you've probably discussed in your program. We see a lot of reshoring, and our kit has to work. So we cut titanium, as I was saying. Those Rolls-Royce engines have to keep the planes in the sky. We cut titanium for armoured vehicles. They have to work. The reliability factor in what we do is absolute. Things cannot be allowed to fail, and the quality, especially when we do reconditioning work, is such that once you've got a good client, Chris, they will come back again and again.
I don't suppose any of the businesses you're buying are in London, are they? I mean,
no,
But you're based in London.
I'm based in London, so I need to be near the city. And without the city and my friends in the city and context, we wouldn't be in business. We've managed to get a sort of like-minded group of investors who they would like to make returns, obviously, but frankly, you could, there's so many people going after them for their investments. They like me have a vision that this is a rare thing where they can make money. It's doing social good in really deprived areas, and actually everybody can win.
This is almost a definition of what the city should be for. I mean,
Definitely.
We've had it attacked in the last few years, people describing it as famously as socially useless, doing all sorts of things that don't matter to anybody. But this is an example of where the city can really help Britain. The City of London, by financing you to enable you to buy factories in the north, the Midlands, keep people in jobs. Presumably you hire apprentices.
We do.
How many apprentices do you have?
We must have the best part of 40 now.
Right.
And they're dotted around in our factories.
And they're people, school leavers?
Yeah, 15, 16 and upwards.
Are you getting the quality of school leavers you want? Are you?
Well, in the army you get taught that there are no such thing as bad soldiers, they're just bad officers. So what we try and do is train them properly and take a very Jesuit approach about...
You can put them on obstacle courses.
Well, no, but in terms of...
crawl through mud.
Treat them like men, and women, and train them properly. I mean, we won't, for example, allow mobile phones on our
Really?
because of the health and safety. Because you must pay attention when you're around. These are enormous CNC machines, and we just try and instill in everybody. You've got to be first class all the time. And actually, what we found, we treat people like that. They respond.
Okay, David, thank you so much for coming in. Absolutely fascinating. That's all we have time for on the Headline Interview today. See you next week.